The world teaches you to be visible at all costs. It tells you to speak louder, post more, explain yourself endlessly, and prove your worth to anyone willing to judge you. But power has never belonged to those who are constantly seen. It belongs to those whose presence becomes impossible to replace. Diamonds are not valuable because they are beautiful. They are valuable because they are rare. The same law governs human nature. The more available you become, the more ordinary you appear. The more ordinary you appear, the less people fight to keep you in their lives. Scarcity has always created value. This principle governs nature, economics, power, and human relationships. The things that are easiest to obtain are rarely appreciated for long. Air is essential for life, yet because it is always available, few stop to admire its existence. Gold, however, is hidden beneath layers of earth, difficult to extract and limited in supply. Its rarity gives it value. Human behavior follows the same pattern. The more accessible you become, the more people begin to treat your presence as something ordinary. When you are always available to answer every call, respond to every message, accept every invitation, and satisfy every expectation, your attention slowly loses its significance. People stop seeing your time as a privilege because they have never experienced the possibility of losing access to it. This is one of the greatest mistakes people make in their pursuit of acceptance. They believe constant availability proves kindness, loyalty, and love. In reality, it often communicates something entirely different. It tells the world that your schedule can always be interrupted, your priorities can always be postponed, and your personal boundaries can always be crossed. Human nature rarely respects what costs nothing. If someone knows they can reach you at any hour, they stop valuing the moments when they actually do. If they know you will always forgive, they become careless with your feelings. If they know you will never walk away, they stop investing effort in keeping you close. This is not because people are naturally cruel. It is because familiarity weakens appreciation. The extraordinary slowly becomes ordinary when it is available without limit. The most influential individuals throughout history understood this psychological law. They did not isolate themselves out of arrogance. They understood that every appearance should carry meaning. Every conversation should have purpose. Every commitment should reflect intention rather than obligation. They guarded their attention because they recognized it as one of the most valuable resources they possessed. Time cannot be replaced once it is spent, and attention determines where your life ultimately goes. Every unnecessary obligation steals energy from something more meaningful. Becoming selective does not mean becoming cold. It means understanding that every yes is also a no to something else. Every hour spent trying to satisfy everyone is an hour taken away from building your skills, strengthening your character, or pursuing your vision. People often confuse accessibility with generosity, but generosity without limits eventually becomes self-neglect. The strongest individuals know when to step back. They understand that absence allows others to recognize value that constant presence hides. Imagine hearing your favorite song every minute of every day. Eventually, it becomes background noise. The melody remains beautiful, but repetition removes its emotional impact. Relationships work in much the same way. Healthy distance creates appreciation because it reminds people that your presence is a privilege rather than a guarantee. This is why powerful individuals never allow guilt to dictate every decision. They choose where their energy goes instead of allowing everyone else to choose for them. They recognize that discipline over availability is discipline over life itself. Every unnecessary explanation, every impulsive response, and every automatic agreement slowly erodes personal authority. Instead of reacting immediately, they pause. Instead of saying yes automatically, they evaluate whether the opportunity aligns with their purpose. Instead of fearing disappointment, they accept that protecting their time will inevitably disappoint people who benefited from unlimited access. True confidence does not seek validation through constant participation. It understands that your value is not measured by how often you appear, but by what you contribute when you do. When your presence becomes intentional instead of predictable, people begin to notice. Conversations become more meaningful because your attention is no longer divided among countless distractions. Your words carry greater weight because they are not spoken carelessly. Your commitments inspire trust because people know you do not make promises lightly. Scarcity transforms attention into influence, and influence belongs to those who understand that their greatest power lies not in being everywhere at once, but in choosing carefully where they invest themselves. Silence has always been misunderstood. Many people mistake it for weakness because they assume strength must always announce itself. They believe confidence is measured by how loudly someone speaks, how quickly they defend themselves, or how often they explain their intentions. Human nature, however, responds very differently. The person who speaks the least often controls the room the most because everyone else begins searching for meaning in what remains unsaid. Words are easy to produce, but restraint is rare. Anyone can react instantly to criticism, answer every accusation, or reveal every emotion the moment it appears. Very few possess the discipline to remain calm while others lose control. This is why silence creates mystery, and mystery captures attention. The unknown has always fascinated people more than the obvious. A closed door invites more curiosity than an open one, because the human mind naturally wants to fill in missing information. The same principle applies to your personality. When you reveal every opinion, every plan, every frustration, and every dream, there is nothing left for people to discover. They quickly believe they have figured you out, and once they believe they understand everything about you, their curiosity disappears. Mystery keeps the mind engaged because it leaves room for imagination. History repeatedly demonstrates this principle. The most influential leaders rarely wasted energy explaining every move before making it. They allowed their actions to create anticipation instead of using endless words to create temporary excitement. While others argued, they observed. While others defended themselves against every criticism, they remained focused on their objectives. Their silence unsettled opponents because people fear what they cannot predict. Predictable individuals are easy to manipulate because their reactions can be anticipated. Mysterious individuals force others to think, hesitate, and question their assumptions. This creates psychological power without raising your voice. Modern life encourages the opposite behavior. Social media rewards constant exposure. People document every meal, every vacation, every opinion, every achievement, and every emotional moment. They seek attention by revealing everything, believing visibility creates importance. Yet constant exposure often produces the opposite effect. When everyone knows every detail of your life, your presence becomes familiar rather than intriguing. There is no anticipation because nothing remains hidden. The strongest people understand that privacy is not secrecy born from fear. It is protection born from wisdom. Not every victory requires an audience. Not every struggle requires public sympathy. Not every goal becomes stronger when announced. In fact, many ambitions lose momentum because speaking about them creates the illusion of progress before any real work has been done. Silence allows your energy to remain focused on execution instead of performance. It teaches emotional discipline because remaining silent during moments of anger prevents words that can never be taken back. It teaches patience because not every misunderstanding deserves immediate correction. Sometimes people reveal more about themselves when you simply listen instead of interrupting. Most conversations are filled with individuals waiting for their turn to speak rather than trying to understand. The person who genuinely listens gains information that everyone else misses. Information has always been one of the greatest sources of influence. Every detail someone voluntarily reveals becomes insight into their fears, desires, habits, and motivations. Meanwhile, If you reveal little about yourself, you remain difficult to read and difficult to manipulate. Silence also builds confidence because it removes the desperate need for constant approval. You no longer feel compelled to justify every decision or convince everyone that you are right. You understand that your life does not require universal agreement. Your actions become your explanation. Your consistency becomes your argument. Your results become your voice. Over time, people begin to associate your silence with strength rather than uncertainty because they notice that while others waste energy talking, you are quietly improving, learning, building, and growing. They realize your calmness is not emptiness but control. In a noisy world where everyone competes to be heard, the individual who masters silence becomes unforgettable because mystery commands attention long after loudness has been forgotten. The greatest victory you will ever achieve is not over another person, but over yourself. Most people spend their lives chasing recognition, believing that respect, admiration, and validation from others will finally make them feel complete. They measure their worth through compliments, applause, promotions, followers, and approval. Their confidence rises when they are praised and collapses when they are ignored. This creates a dangerous dependence because it places the control of their identity into the hands of strangers. The moment your self-worth depends on another person's opinion, you surrender your freedom. Human nature is unpredictable. The same people who celebrate you today may criticize you tomorrow. If your emotional stability is tied to their reactions, your life becomes an endless cycle of emotional highs and lows. True power begins when you stop asking the world to confirm your value and begin building a character that needs no permission to exist. Self-mastery is the foundation of lasting influence because external achievement can compensate for internal weakness. A person who cannot control their emotions will eventually lose control of their decisions. A person who cannot discipline their habits will struggle to achieve meaningful success regardless of talent. Every great strategist throughout history understood that conquering the mind is more difficult than conquering kingdoms. Before leading others, they learned to lead themselves. They developed patience while others rushed, discipline while others searched for comfort, and clarity while others became distracted by temporary pleasures. Most people wake each morning reacting to life instead of directing it. They check their phones before organizing their thoughts. They allow notifications, opinions, and endless distractions to determine the course of their day. Without realizing it, they become servants to urgency rather than masters of purpose. Self-mastery demands the opposite approach. It requires learning to govern your attention because where your attention goes, your future follows. Every moment spent feeding unnecessary distractions is a moment stolen from your potential. Every excuse repeated strengthens the habit of avoiding responsibility. Every disciplined action strengthens the identity of someone capable of achieving more. Recognition should never become the objective because recognition is unpredictable. Skill is predictable. Growth is predictable. Character is predictable. If you dedicate yourself to becoming excellent rather than becoming famous, recognition often follows naturally, but even if it does not, you still possess something infinitely more valuable. You possess competence that cannot be taken away by changing trends or shifting public opinion. The strongest individuals are rarely obsessed with proving themselves because they are too busy improving themselves. They understand that confidence grows through repeated evidence collected in private. Every promise you keep to yourself becomes another brick in the foundation of self-respect. Every difficult task completed despite discomfort teaches your mind that discipline is stronger than emotion. This quiet confidence cannot be purchased or borrowed because it is earned through consistent action. It allows you to remain calm when others doubt you because your belief comes from experience rather than encouragement. It also changes the way people perceive you. Those who desperately seek attention often appear insecure because they constantly advertise their value. Those who possess genuine confidence rarely need to announce it because their actions communicate what words never could. Their presence carries weight because they are not searching for approval. They have already approved of the person they are becoming. This inner certainty influences every conversation, every decision, and every relationship. They refuse to compromise their principles simply to gain acceptance because they understand that temporary popularity is never worth permanent self-betrayal. Every day becomes another opportunity to refine their habits, strengthen their discipline, sharpen their thinking, and deepen their understanding of themselves. Instead of comparing their journey with others, they compete with the person they were yesterday. This relentless commitment to self-improvement transforms ordinary individuals into extraordinary ones. Because they no longer depend on the world to define their worth, they become the source of their own confidence, their own discipline, and their own direction, making them impossible to control through praise or fear, because the strongest approval they will ever receive comes from the quiet knowledge that they have mastered themselves before seeking recognition from anyone else. Your time is the only possession that cannot be replaced once it is gone. Money lost can be earned again. Opportunities missed can sometimes return in another form. Relationships may end and begin again, but every hour that passes disappears forever. Yet most people protect everything except the one resource that determines the quality of their entire life. They guard their money carefully, compare prices before making purchases, and hesitate before spending on unnecessary things, but they hand out their attention freely to anyone who demands it. They allow endless conversations, meaningless arguments, constant notifications, and other people's emergencies to consume the very energy they need to build their own future. This is why so many talented individuals remain average. Their potential is not destroyed by lack of ability, but by the inability to protect what matters most. Every distraction steals more than a few minutes. It interrupts momentum, weakens focus, and trains the mind to react instead of create. Human nature encourages immediate gratification because responding instantly feels productive, but busyness should never be confused with progress. Many people spend entire days solving problems that were never theirs to solve. They answer every message the moment it arrives, attend every invitation out of guilt, and involve themselves in every conflict because they fear disappointing others. Slowly, their own dreams become secondary to everyone else's expectations. The people who achieve extraordinary results understand a different principle. They know that every yes carries the hidden cost of saying no to something else. Agreeing to unnecessary commitments means sacrificing hours that could have been invested in learning, creating, improving, or resting. They become selective not because they are selfish, but because they understand the price of divided attention. Protecting your energy is equally important because energy determines how effectively your time can be used. Two people may have the same 24 hours, yet one accomplishes far more because their mind remains focused, while the other is emotionally exhausted by unnecessary drama. Emotional energy leaks through constant worry, endless comparisons, unresolved resentment, and relationships that demand more than they contribute. Some people enter your life only to consume your attention without adding value. They bring negativity, complaints, gossip, and endless problems while offering little encouragement or growth in return. Remaining available to everyone often means becoming unavailable for yourself. Learning to create boundaries is therefore an act of wisdom rather than cruelty. Every boundary communicates that your life has purpose. It teaches others how to treat your time because people naturally respect what you consistently protect. If you repeatedly abandon your priorities whenever someone calls, they will assume your priorities were never important. If you constantly interrupt your work to satisfy every request, they will continue expecting immediate access. Boundaries are not created through words alone, but through repeated actions. You teach people what is acceptable by what you consistently allow. This requires the courage to disappoint others occasionally. Many individuals fear rejection so deeply that they sacrifice their peace simply to avoid hearing the word no. Ironically, this endless need to please eventually creates resentment because they realize they have built a life controlled by other people's expectations. The strongest individuals understand that respect grows when your availability has limits. They choose specific moments for deep work, personal reflection, learning, and recovery, refusing to let unnecessary interruptions dictate their schedule. They recognize that protecting solitude is not isolation but preparation. Great ideas rarely appear in crowded, noisy environments filled with endless distractions. They emerge during moments of focused attention when the mind has room to think clearly. Every hour spent strengthening your skills, improving your health, expanding your knowledge, or refining your character becomes an investment whose returns multiply over time. This disciplined protection of time and energy separates those who merely stay busy from those who steadily build lives of influence, purpose, and lasting significance, because they understand that their greatest responsibility is not to satisfy every demand placed upon them, but to preserve the mental, emotional, and physical resources required to become the person they were truly capable of becoming. The world does not reward those who are merely present. It rewards those who possess something that cannot be easily copied, replaced, or forgotten. Most people spend years trying to fit into the crowd because belonging feels safe. They learn the same skills as everyone else, follow the same routines, repeat the same opinions, and pursue the same goals. In doing so, they unknowingly become interchangeable. When thousands of people can offer the exact same value, there is little reason for anyone to remember one individual over another. Human nature naturally seeks what is uncommon. We admire the craftsman whose work carries a signature style, the leader whose thinking breaks away from convention, and the artist whose creations cannot be mistaken for anyone else's. Their rarity is not an accident. It is the result of years spent mastering abilities that others considered too difficult, too slow, or too demanding. Developing uncommon skills begins with abandoning the obsession with immediate results. Modern culture encourages speed. Everyone wants instant success, instant recognition, and instant expertise. They watch a few videos, read a handful of articles, and believe they have mastered a subject. Real mastery refuses to follow this timeline. It demands patience, repetition, failure, and relentless refinement. Every expert was once invisible. Every respected individual once struggled in silence while others chased easier paths. The difference is that they continued long after the excitement disappeared. They understood that excellence is built in private, long before it is recognized in public. Choose skills that increase your independence rather than your dependence. Learn to think critically instead of accepting every popular opinion. Learn to communicate with clarity while others speak without purpose. Learn to observe human behavior instead of reacting emotionally to it. Study psychology, negotiation, leadership, history, strategy, writing, and emotional discipline because these abilities remain valuable regardless of changing trends. Technology evolves, industries change, and markets shift, but the ability to understand people will always separate those who influence from those who merely participate. Every uncommon skill you develop becomes another layer of protection against becoming ordinary. The greatest advantage is not talent, but consistency. Talent may open a door, but discipline keeps it open. Many gifted individuals waste their potential because they rely on natural ability instead of daily improvement. Meanwhile, someone with average talent but extraordinary discipline quietly surpasses them year after year. This is the hidden power of compounding effort. A single day of practice appears insignificant, but thousands of disciplined days transform an ordinary person into someone whose abilities seem almost effortless. What appears to the outside world as natural brilliance is usually the result of countless unseen hours of focused work. Resist the temptation to announce your progress before it has matured. Many people seek praise while they are still beginners because recognition temporarily satisfies the ego. Yet every minute spent seeking applause is a minute not spent improving. Let your work develop in silence. Allow your results to surprise people instead of your promises. There is quiet confidence in knowing that your value grows regardless of whether anyone notices today. Eventually, your competence becomes impossible to ignore because excellence leaves evidence. Others begin seeking your advice, your perspective, and your expertise not because you demanded attention, but because your abilities consistently solved problems they could not solve themselves. This is how true influence is created. It is earned through usefulness rather than popularity. The more difficult your skills are to imitate, the less competition you face. While countless individuals fight over the same opportunities, you begin creating opportunities that exist because of your unique value. Your reputation becomes tied to quality instead of quantity. People remember you because you deliver what few others can. Over time, your identity shifts from someone searching for significance to someone whose presence naturally carries weight. You no longer need to compete for attention because your uncommon abilities make you difficult to replace. And in a world filled with people chasing shortcuts, the individual who quietly commits to lifelong mastery becomes increasingly rare, increasingly respected, and increasingly powerful with every passing year. The greatest form of influence is never created by chasing people. It is created by becoming someone whose life naturally draws attention without asking for it. Most people spend years pursuing approval, hoping that if they say the right words, wear the right image, or constantly seek the company of others, they will finally feel important. They become trapped in a cycle of proving themselves, believing that their value depends on how many people notice them. Yet history reveals a different truth. The individuals who leave the deepest impact are rarely the ones who desperately seek recognition. They are the ones who dedicate themselves to building a life filled with purpose, discipline, wisdom, and excellence. Their attention is directed inward toward growth rather than outward toward validation. Because of this, people begin seeking them instead. Human nature is drawn toward those who appear complete without needing constant reassurance. Confidence is magnetic because it signals independence. When your happiness no longer depends on being included everywhere or accepted by everyone, you become difficult to manipulate. You stop making decisions based on fear of rejection and begin making them according to your principles. This quiet certainty changes the way people respond to you. Instead of asking for attention, you command it through your character. Building such a life begins with identifying a purpose greater than popularity. Ask yourself what kind of person you wish to become, rather than how many people you wish to impress. Every day should move you closer to that vision. Read books that sharpen your thinking instead of consuming endless entertainment that leaves your mind unchanged. Develop habits that strengthen your discipline instead of feeding temporary comfort. Improve your health because physical strength supports mental resilience. Protect your integrity because trust, once lost, is among the hardest things to recover. Every decision either builds your future identity or weakens it. Most people underestimate the power of small daily actions because they expect dramatic transformations overnight. Real change rarely announces itself. It grows quietly beneath the surface until one day everyone notices the result without seeing the years of preparation behind it. While others waste time comparing themselves with friends, competitors, or strangers on the internet, you should compare yourself only with the person you were yesterday. Every improvement, no matter how small, compounds into extraordinary change over time. This mindset frees you from unnecessary competition because your greatest opponent becomes your previous limitations. A meaningful life also requires learning to walk alone when necessary. There will be moments when your goals separate you from familiar circles. Some people will misunderstand your discipline because it reminds them of their excuses. Others will criticize your boundaries because they benefited from your unlimited availability. Do not allow temporary loneliness to convince you that you are moving in the wrong direction. Growth often requires periods of solitude where your character is strengthened without the distraction of constant approval. During these moments, you discover whether your ambition is genuine or merely dependent on applause. The strongest individuals remain committed even when nobody is watching because their motivation comes from purpose rather than recognition. As your life becomes more intentional, your relationships naturally change. Instead of surrounding yourself with those who consume your energy, you begin attracting individuals who share your values, challenge your thinking, and respect your boundaries. These relationships are built on mutual growth instead of emotional dependence. They last because they are supported by respect rather than convenience. People begin seeking your presence because your conversations offer clarity instead of gossip. Your actions demonstrate consistency instead of empty promises, and your example inspires confidence instead of insecurity. Without asking for admiration, you become someone others remember long after the conversation ends. Your presence carries weight because it reflects years of discipline, patience, and quiet self-improvement. In a world where countless people desperately compete to be seen, the person who devotes their life to becoming wiser, stronger, calmer, and more purposeful discovers a remarkable truth. When your life itself becomes uncommon, you no longer need to chase attention because attention naturally begins to chase you.